Hello, dear beloveds. Well, it is my third live in 3 days, and I am delighted to be here with you again. Today, I really feel to connect into the archetypal energy of the mystic. And the reason I want to speak to you about this archetypal energy is because, of course, it's at the core of everything I do. It's also a very, I don't know, kind of popular archetype in the world at the moment. There's a lot of people who I feel really resonate with the idea of the mystic, but also people who are very aspirational towards this. It feels like something that there is this, as Caroline Mace would say, this second great mystical awakening happening in the world. And so there's this real drawing towards the qualities or the identity of the mystic. But I think there's also a lot of misinformation or kind of confusion around, well, what does that actually mean to be a mystic? Is it just someone who has a spiritual practice? Is it just someone who meditates? Is it just a spiritual seeker? And I would say, no, that is not the case. The mystic is something else, and the mystic is really so much more interesting than that. A lot of people pick up and put down their spirituality quite casually. But the mystic isn't like that, and the mystic, you will often have known from early on in your life that the mystic is with you, because I believe that the mystic is a part of our identity that isn't something that we kind of go, oh, well, I'm going to be that now. I'm just going to start meditating and chanting and doing yoga, and I'll call myself a mystic. The mystic is often there with you from the beginning of your life, and it may be, as your life changes and she comes and goes, she gets closer and she goes further away. But if you were to recall yourself as a child, did you create spaces for yourself that were sort of secreted away from the rest of the world? Did you like to spend time on your own? Did you often feel, deeply attuned to the world of the adults around you? Even if you didn't know exactly what was going on, you had a really good sense of the emotional state of being of the people around you. Did you feel drawn to the images of religion even, and the ideas that maybe you didn't fully understand as a child, but that were part of your psyche, that you were drawn to the ideas of angels or saints, or even practices like prayer? And you may have found yourself, even as a little child, having imaginary friends or talking to God. And this is often the case with women that I meet who I train as contemporary mystics, is that quality has been with them since they were tiny, but it may just be resurging at this point in their life, particularly when we are, beginning to have the freedom and to pursue our soul path. Perhaps, the busyness of raising children or the demands of daily life are easing just a little bit, and we can meet the mystic. So who is the mystic in a contemporary world? Because, as the great contemporary mystic Caroline May says, we're in the age of the mystic without walls. Once upon a time, if you were drawn to a mystic's life, you might enter an order, a spiritual order. You might go and sit in a cave for 20 years. You would shun the things of daily life, and you would pursue the inner workings of the soul above all else. But we're not in that age anymore. We live in the age of the mystic in the world, and so she has to be present. She's raising the babies and she's doing the work, and sorry, my hair's annoying me. She's showing up in real life. And this is something that really typifies the contemporary mystic. And one of the ways that we can so often get caught up in or get lost is that we are so in the world that we forget to privilege our mystic. So the mystic is someone who naturally and through effort and dedication cultivates a relationship with their inner life, with their relationship with God or infinite consciousness first. So their primary relationship is with God or infinite consciousness, and then everything else comes after that. Does that mean they don't have partners or children or homes or all of that? No, and I'm living, breathing proof of that. I have all of those things, and I still know that my primary relationship is with God. So the ways that I need to show up in the world are maybe different to someone else. And what the mystic needs is what I want to talk to you a little bit about today, and how you can care for your mystic. Because so often our spiritual crises, I believe, are because we've neglected the needs of our inner mystic. Now, my third level priestesses will tell you that there's a very simple formula for what the mystic needs above all else: stillness, silence, and solitude. And so if you identify with the qualities of the mystic, if you have a deep reverence for communing with the infinite, for placing your spiritual life at the center of your being, even when there are all these demands on you, then you are the mystic in the world. And the mystic will require you to self-care in ways that are different to the majority of the world. The deep self-care of the mystic is that every day there has to be stillness, silence, and solitude. And that might require a level of discipline on your behalf that is uncomfortable and means that your lifestyle is going to have to change. It might mean that you have to get up before everyone else in your family, or stay up after they've all gone to bed. It might mean that you have to disappoint the people around you and say, I'm just not available to come to that barbecue on Sunday afternoon because I need to go into deep meditation. Or it might be that you just have to say, sorry, honey, I can't sit on the couch and watch that crappy TV show because I can't put my consciousness on stuff like that. That may be a real life example from my life. And, you know, one of the things that my husband and I used to do, as a lot of couples do, is we'd watch TV together, and we'd pick TV shows that we both liked, which were few and far between. And I remember one of those shows was Game of Thrones. Now, as I went on my spiritual journey, that show, even though I loved the drama and the actors and all of the storylines and everything, became intolerable to my mystic soul. My mystic could no longer participate in watching violence of that nature. And I just became like a physical shock to my body. And I feel that way if I watch the news, or if I even see TV commercials, or if there are things that are too loud around me. And so I had to get off the couch and say, baby, that's all yours. I'll be in the bedroom drinking my tea and reading A Course in Miracles. I didn't tell him that because he's not really interested in what I'm reading. But I made a choice to change the nature of my relationship. Now, I think that's a pretty easy choice to make, because if watching TV with my partner was the highest, level of intimacy that we had, we'd have a problem. But it may be that in your life, you're going to change the nature of your relationships, and that people around you might get a little bit uncomfortable. Is it worth it? Yes, because the benefit of privileging your mystic is that you are more patient, more kind, more loving, and more compassionate. So look to your day every day. Do I have at least some time each day where I am alone, where I am alone with God, where I am in stillness? That means I'm not alone doing the dishes. I am alone in stillness and in silence. So, of course, meditation might be a really perfect practice for that. Or it might be prayer, or it might be, journaling, or it might be, reading a sacred text. But all of those things should be part of your daily life, not an afterthought. Because here's what happens to the mystic when she doesn't have those in her daily life. She loses her shit. She gets angry with the people around her, irrationally angry. She's unkind to herself or others. She might be depressed. She's anxious. She's uptight. She's seeing problems everywhere. Nothing feels in a flow state. She's disconnected from her intuition. These are all signs of a mystic who has not privileged her inner life. The thing is, if we're too concretized, if we're too wedded to 3D reality, if we are more matter than wave, we have forgotten our mystic. We've forgotten our true nature, which is that we are pure vibration. We are energy first, physical second. And that overemphasis, that over-identification with 3D reality is an anathema to the mystic, whose entire purpose is to become more vibration, less matter, more wave, less particle, in order to get closer to her true nature, which is that pure vibration, that God consciousness. So if you are not giving yourself that opportunity to de-identify with your external reality, to de-identify with your personality, you're going to be driving your mystic bananas. And you may find that even if you have stillness, silence, and solitude every day, you're still going to want to retreat from the world from time to time. Now, for me, that shows up in a number of ways. Like, I've just come back from a literal retreat where I needed to, you know, for 9 days, step away from the world completely and go into my mystic's cave with a group of other women doing the same thing. It might be that you do a self-led retreat. One of the things I used to do quite often is just book myself into a hotel for the night and leave my family and the demands of my family life behind, because I needed to be deeply in solitude, not in solitude with the kids on the other side of the door banging, going, "Mom, can I just come in and get the thing out of the room?" I needed more than that. And it was very, very important for me to be unafraid to demand that, or ask for that, or you know, ask for that knowing that the answer was going to have to be yes, because otherwise we'd have problems. You know, to have that sense of absolute aloneness, that I could not be interrupted, that I was not available. That may seem like an indulgence, especially if you're a mother or a partner, but it isn't. It's essential for your well-being. And, you know, if you're not giving yourself that, then you will find you burn out from life very, very easily. A few beautiful comments here. Yes, my mystic hasn't been happy for a while. My mystic isn't happy today. Time for silence. Yeah, and it can be like 20 minutes of just being in that truth of what you are, coming home to the truth of what you are, withdrawing your attention from the illusion. Okay, do you hear that? You're withdrawing your attention from the illusion, going to the real world. The real world is that place where you commune with God, not the other way around. You know, it's so vital that we don't believe that the illusion is truth, even though it's louder and more aggressive and more demanding. It is not our true home. Our true home is within. And when we go into the cathedral of our heart, where we anchor into our soul, we will suddenly feel that connection and that nourishment we've been craving. The beautiful upside of this is we stop putting too much demand on the people around us to fulfill our needs, because what you're yelling at your husband that you need him to give you is actually probably what you need to be going to get from God or from the infinite. And in this state of being, we don't apologize for our needs as a mystic. So we're not going, "Oh, I'm really sorry, honey. I know you worked all week, but I really need you to look after the kids because I got to go and have a bath and be with my mystic." No, no, no. The mystic is not apologetic, because the mystic is doing something that nobody else is doing. The mystic is holding a new vibrational paradigm for human consciousness. And if we as mystics don't do this work, the world starts to fall apart. You might notice the world is in a slight state of chaos. Imagine if everyone who was a mystic was to wake up, and we sat in devotion and we held the planet and the consciousness of humanity in our prayers and in our meditations every day. We would so radically and so quickly see a change in the state of the world that we would never doubt how important our work is. But because it's invisible, because it can't be quantified, because it's not a paying gig, we will put it at the bottom of the list. So there's no one here to advocate for you. You have to advocate for yourself. You have to get over your need for approval from external sources and say to anybody who is around you who might have a problem with you privileging that time, that this is a non-negotiable. This isn't going to be put at the bottom of the list anymore. And there's ways to do that that are with love, because when you speak your truth from your heart, you're speaking love into the world, and that will be heard with love. When you speak from fear and anger and self-loathing and doubt and am I worth it and oh my God, is he going to leave me and all those things, then you go into the world from that paradigm. So the first thing to do is really build your relationship with your mystic, privilege her, get to know her, find out what her needs are. My mystic loves a bath. My mystic needs to bathe like 3 to 4 times a week. My mystic is a yogi. My mystic needs to get on the mat as often as possible. My mystic needs stillness, silence, and solitude. Some days I am pushing my family out the front door, and if they don't move quickly enough, I just feel her getting cranky and crankier and crankier. And then I need to give myself what I need, not just go and do the laundry and make the food and clean. I mean, my house could definitely do with cleaning today. It's not happening. What I need to do is privilege that part of myself that, whilst it can't be quantified, is actually the part of me that is changing the world. And if I don't do that, then I am causing the imbalance that I see around me. I don't want to put too fine a point on it. There is no way to get out of that truth, that if you keep undermining your inner mystic, then you are precariously keeping the world in its current state of being. And I don't want to be part of that. I want to contribute something different. So I had lots of things that I was going to say about the mystic, but I feel like this has really been much more important, is to talk about the self-care for the mystic. And how do you cultivate that spiritual self-esteem that will allow you to change the nature of the setup in your home, the setup in your relationships, the setup in the way that you work and the way that you spend your social time? How will you change your lifestyle to match your mystical nature? Because I don't want you to be calling yourself a contemporary mystic and sharing the memes and being all like, oh yeah, God's my bae and everything's awesome, and actually just behaving like a muggle. Like, what is the point in a performative spirituality? If you are truly wedded to your mystic as the primary relationship of your life, then you start doing the work. Be a good partner. Be a good partner to your mystic, and stop treating her so badly and then asking her to perform whenever you want the world to acknowledge that you're a mystic. This mystical part of us, this part of us is not the one that sits in circles with other women. It's not the one that goes live on the internet. It's not the one that shares Facebook posts. The mystic is the deeply private, deeply personal part of you that you don't need to demonstrate to the world. You don't need to get approval for her. She's not looking for pats on the back. In fact, she wants everyone to fuck off. She just wants to be on her own with God. So if your faith, and we talked about this yesterday, and someone said they really loved it, you can measure the depth of your faith by what do you do when no one is looking. How deep is your faith when nobody is around observing you or giving you comments on how great you are and how deeply spiritual you are. The measure of your faith is what do you do in the privacy of your own practice. And if you don't have a daily devotional practice, but you identify as a mystic, then we've got a disconnect going on here. Now, I am a mother, and I understand that every day is not going to be easy to show up, but what would it take to cultivate that spiritual discipline, that tapas, that fire that would allow you to show up every damn day, even if it meant having to get up at 5 a.m, even if it meant it was for 5 minutes and that's all you had? God's not asking you to show up for hours and hours on end. We are the mystic in the world, remember? What would it take for you to turn that 10 minutes that you're sitting in the car before you pick up the kids, instead of scrolling through your phone or listening to the radio, for you to go within and to wed yourself with your mystic sight and to be wedded to that place before you go on with your day? What would it take for you to schedule 5 minutes every hour to breathe deeply and breathe in a sense of communion with God? What would it take for you to make prayer part of your daily devotion, where you say, I don't know how to do this on my own, God, but I am willing? Or just to use the prayer, my favorite prayer, thank you, thank you, thank you. What would it take for you to use that time when you're stuck in a traffic jam to sit in a stillness and an intentional silence, rather than cranking noise in the car or phoning someone or just worrying and ruminating about when the traffic light's going to change? These are mystics practices. How do we embed the mystic in our daily life? And nobody is going to do that for you. And it is not about special conditions. It's not about the 9-day retreat in Bali. If you get that, yay, that's awesome. I'm really excited for you. That was an amazing opportunity for me. But that was my first retreat that I'd done for myself in 2 years. It wasn't like I get to do that every 5 minutes because I'm busy. I got stuff to do. But my daily mystic practices are non-negotiable. Emma says her mystic needs either music or long walks. Yes, both of those things. Walking the dog is a mystic's practice for me, and I do it with intention. So I either go listening to something really sacred and holy, whether that's music or whether that's a beautiful audio book, or I go in silence and I make sure that my mystic is being honored in that space, and I pay attention to the mother around me, and I absorb the beauty that she's offering me, and I commune with the trees, and I feel the medicine that they have available for me. And so much of what we need to understand about the mystic is it's simply our intention. Where am I placing my intention today? Am I just bored and letting life go past me, or ruminating, or focusing on my anxiety, focusing on what I don't want? Or am I deepening my commitment to knowing myself as God? Dear God, increase my power to serve. Just walking and repeating that prayer. Let my life be a demonstration of your power. Let my whole life be a reflection of your holiness. Let my soul go where I cannot go, and let my soul go only with God. Just walking through your day, walking through the supermarket, walking through, whatever mundane chores you've got, with that as your narrative, rather than I'm worried about this and my kids this, and I don't know if I've got enough money for that, and I don't know if my husband likes me, and what am I going to cook for dinner? You know, all of those things will take care of themselves if you privilege that invisible relationship. And that's what to me it is to be a mystic in the world. It's not the big external demonstrations of your spirituality. It's those tiny invisible gestures that can be the soundtrack to your life if you learn to cultivate that discipline and learn to live from that space. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. So thank you so much for joining me. It's one of my favorite topics. And in fact, I spend a whole year training women to cultivate this relationship with their inner mystic, because without that at the center, there's no point me teaching them how to be intuitive guides and spiritual leaders. Our relationship with our inner mystic, that willingness to go into the mystic's cave and leave behind our identity and our personality and all our things that we want for ourselves, and to merge with our God nature, is really the heart and soul of the third level. And the interviews are currently open for the next round, the next intake of the third level, which happens in July. And I would say one of the greatest blessings about this program is that it gives you permission to privilege your inner mystic for a year. You can say, hey, buddy, hey, partner, hey, children, I'm paying to invest in cultivating this relationship. And perhaps that will be what gives you the permission not to hide and not to sit back from the truth of what you are, and to create a paradigm shift. So I'm going to share the details of the third level interviews, which are currently open. The next interview, I think, is available in May. They've booked out very, very quickly, but we do have some times left, and I would be honored to guide any woman who feels that she is being called to be in service in this very, very powerful way, to step up now, because the world needs you, my darling. The world is in its second great mystical revolution, and we need to be part of it if we're being called to do this work. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a beautiful weekend wherever you are, and I'll see you very soon.